Okay, so what I'm actually going to do now is to set up to create a seam. Now your seam is the stitch that you would sew on the inside of your piece of material. You won't want to see your stitching on the outside. So making sure that you've got right sides together, so it's the outside of your material. Now some materials like this, you can just about see the difference of the quality of the grain. So this is a lot brighter on the outside. So you make sure that your outsides are together and you've lined up your edges almost perfectly. Now this is really important because I see a lot of people pinning this way. So they pin down the material, which is absolutely fine if you're intending to do a tacking stitch, which is a stitch that will hold your pieces of material in place. However, that does take up a lot of time. So what I tend to do, and I advise people to do, is to actually put your pins in this way. This means that you can actually put this piece of material through the sewing machine without taking the pins out, because your needle will basically just hop over the pins. Once that's in place, and I wouldn't recommend putting a huge amount of pins in. I've seen some people who put pins in every centimetre or so, and one thing that I would say is, one, it is a waste of time, and two, it will actually pucker your garment and won't leave you with a nice neat edge. So if you come over to the sewing machine, I'll show you how to put it in the sewing machine. Now, the really good thing about sewing machines is that they actually have a stitch guide for you to tell you where you're placing, to tell you the distance from the needle to that line. Now, all seams are 15 millimetres or 1.5 centimetres. That means I'm looking for the 15 line, and this, the edge of my material must go along this for the whole time I am sewing. Now, it's really important that you actually follow that guide, because as you're creating your skirts and your shorts, you'll notice that it curves around the edge. If you go straight down, what you're going to do is you're going to make it so that your skirt or your shorts will not sit over your hips. Right, okay, what I've actually done is I've placed my material into the sewing machine along the 15 line, and I've placed my presser foot down. Now, it's always really good at this point to double check that your stitch is right, because lots of people will come into this onto these machines, will maybe change it to zigzag stitches. It needs to be a straight stitch for the seam, absolutely, because otherwise it takes up too much room and it will change the size of your garment, and you don't want it to be too small. And that's what that will do. So all I'm going to do is go one stitch in, reverse stitch, and then go right the way to the end, and then reverse stitch, making sure that the edge of my material runs along that 15 line, and that will give me a perfect seam allowance of 15 millimetres. Now, once you've done that, the best thing to do is to actually press your seam flat. Now, what this will do will ensure that when it's on the body, it won't pucker at any places. So all you will do, take your pins out, lay your seams nice and flat, and use an iron, just the tip of the iron, and run it down. And this is actually called a flat seam.